Hello, good morning, and welcome to ForexForSteadyProfit.com. I use the Commitment of Traders report, which comes out every week on a Friday, and I need to give me an idea of market direction. I analyze the ratios of longs to shorts for the commercials and non-commercials, and I also look at the divergence on the pairs, and it gives me an idea of market direction. We'll just go and have a quick look at the charts. So here we have the Commitment of Traders information in its raw form. You get the non-commercial positions and the commercial positions, long and short, and then you get the change in open interest. And you also get that broken down underneath for longs and shorts for both the commercials and the non-commercials. And we can see this broken down into a graph over a period of time, which also gives us comparatives, which are also very useful to look back on the history. And so we'll go and do that right now. And here we have a graph of the positions over 52 weeks, that's a year, for the commitment of traders of the commercials and non-commercials. And this is for the Australian dollar. This chart is produced by cotbase.com. And you can see here where we got to a low position with the commercials, and we're completely opposite to the speculators, and they've got a long position, so we're short. You can see we had a big drop off in the price of the Australian dollar. Conversely, when we were at a high and very bullish for the commercials, and we were fairly bearish for the non-commercials, that we actually had a hike in the rise of the price of the Australian dollar. This is a very useful tool to be using, and we can show you other ways that we use it and other things that we do with it. So here we have the Australian dollar, US dollar, and we've got the RSI. Now if we put a trend line on the RSI and we wait for it to go above the 69.1 and come back down and cut through it, this gives us a sell signal. Now, this obviously would have been a very good sell signal here. We had a sell signal here indicating this big long fall that we've had. And quite recently, we've had a rise in the price of the Australian dollar, which is just going through the 50 here. And I'm expecting it to turn back down and cut through the trend line, which will give us another sell signal because we have an extreme position of short the commercials and long the non-commercials on the Commitment of Traders report, and this should be quite a long sustained downward trend, which is always very profitable. Last bit of information, this is Ludwig's divergence calculator, and it works really well, and this helps us with the crosses. These are the currencies against the US dollar, and here we have the crosses calculated, and it gives us a divergence value between the commercials and the non-commercials, and it shows some of the pairs that are of more interest than others. A very useful tool, only available on the Members Centre, and the pairs that are of most interest we do feature on the video on the Members Centre every day, so you get a daily video on those. Hello, greetings and welcome. It's the 31st of December, and we've got the Commitment of Traders report. The Australian dollar we'll start with, and as you can see at this period here, it's fairly difficult to see, but just here, this is when the Australian dollar started to move sharply upwards, and this is when the commercials dumped a load of their shorts, and now we've gone up, and we've started to take a more bearish position, and the Australian dollar has actually gone up even more to a 78. So I am expecting for the bearish position to have been reinstated by the commercials, I saw a little bit of a slowing down in the rise of the Australian dollar towards the end of last week, but we were coming up to a little bit of resistance, the end of these candles over here. So, I think this might be fading now, and we'll see a little bit of a downturn. Even in this sharp uprise that we had here, we do get a little bit of slowing around this 78 position. Nice big round numbers. So that's what I'm thinking for with this. And we'll move on now to the British pound. British pound, as I said last week, we have got a bearish position. If you look at over a longer period, you can see this more pronounced. Now, this is a very bearish position we have now by the commitment of traders. So we've had this nice steep climb in the value of the pound, and I think we're going to see a little bit of a fall off now. Canadian dollar. We've actually had an increase in the value of the Canadian dollar. The oil price has shot up, and we've seen this very steep rise. As you can see, between this period here, which is the bottom of the rise, and over here, the commercials have dumped a load of their short positions. So anyway, I'm expecting maybe a little bit more upside to this. We're starting to come into a little bit of resistance as we move up here. Maybe 80-50, a little bit more upside, and then we should see the commercials come back in short heavily for the Canadian dollar. The euro. We have taken, again, this is a very bearish position. We came off the highs the last couple of weeks, but the commercials have taken, again, a very bearish position. This is up to sort of recent highs from earlier this year. We will see how this goes, but I'm expecting quite a bit of downside for the euro. Japanese yen. The commercials are still bullish the yen. It has come off a little bit. We have seen a little bit of a rise in the value of the yen. We've come back down. It's now settled around about the 89 mark, but the commercials are still very bearish of this pair. So we'll see where that goes to. Swiss franc. Again, around here we saw the commercials, they actually sold some of their long position. We saw an increase in the price of the Swiss franc. It went up really nicely, and we saw some of the long position come off. And yeah, I think we've still got a little bit more to go on this pair. US dollar index. We saw a decline in the value of the dollar last week. They didn't like Mr. Trump's tax proposals, amongst other things, and we've seen the dollar fall to just below the 92 mark. But the commercials have got a fairly bullish position on this. This is a 2-year graph, so we are expecting more upside for the dollar. Mexican peso. We have had an extreme bearish position taken by the commercials, and we've actually fallen off that now as the peso has started dropping. I do expect more downside. We've had a little bit of a pullback, might get a bit more. I got out virtually at the bottom there. I've been in this for about the last 6 months. I took my trade out down there. So we'll see where that goes over the next week or so. If there is a bit of a pullback, I'll get back in short on that. New Zealand dollar. We've seen we had a fairly bullish position taken here for the New Zealand dollar a few weeks back, and since then we've actually gone up in value quite nicely. but the commercials have actually increased their bullish position. So I am quite honestly expecting more upside to this. I mean, we'll start coming into resistance about 72, just before 72. So it'll be interesting to see how far up that can get. Energies, crude oil. We've still got an extreme. This is an all-time extreme bearish position taken on crude oil. So I am basically expecting a lot more downside in that. Metals. Now, one of the metals I think particularly interesting this week is copper. The commercials have taken a very bearish position on copper, and we've seen quite an increase in price over the last few weeks. Excuse me, it started to top out around the 33 mark. So we'll see where that goes, but I am expecting this to take a bit of a tumble. Might be interesting just to watch it. Silver. Well, the commercials are still fairly bullish of the silver. So basically, I'm just sitting here watching it, and if it does make a really nice high, I will go short this again. Yeah. Palladium was something else people were talking about. Again, we've got a very bullish position on palladium. Sorry, a very bearish position on palladium. So that might be just worth watching, see where it goes to, just out of interest. Platinum. This is fairly bullish again. It's not as clear. I think perhaps the palladium might be better to watch. So see where you go. Okay, well that's it for this week, and hopefully see you next year, and Happy New Year to everybody. Cheers now.